June 1944. Saipan burned behind him. Black smoke curled over the trees as the sound of machine guns rattled from the cliffs. A Marine crawled through brush, alone, bleeding from one leg. His patrol was gone. All 6 men dead in under 20 minutes. He was supposed to be next. Instead, he escaped, not by shooting, by listening. Hours earlier, a squadmate had joked, "You gonna sweet-talk him to death." That joke would age badly. His name was Guy Gabaldon, 18 years old, East LA kid, half Mexican, raised by a Japanese-American family. He spoke the enemy's language. No one in his unit trusted him for it. But that night, something broke. In rage, in grief, in memory, he walked toward the caves alone. Over the next 3 weeks, he would do what no one thought possible. One Marine, one voice, over 1,300 surrenders. Because sometimes war listens to the ones it mocks. Guy Gabaldon wasn't supposed to make it through basic. He was short, mouthy, and disobedient. He enlisted at 17 just days after his foster brothers were taken to internment camps by the same government he now swore to serve. The Marines saw a punk from East Law. He saw a war with no clean lines. At Camp Pendleton, he impressed nobody. He picked fights, spoke Japanese during training. One sergeant pulled him aside and said, "That better be a joke." It wasn't. Gabaldon had grown up in a Japanese-American household, ate with chopsticks, spoke the language fluently, called his foster mother Okazan. But now, speaking it made him a suspect, not a scout. When the orders came for Saipan, Gabaldon was attached to the 2nd Marine Division. No one knew what to expect. Japanese resistance was rumored to be fanatical. "They'll fight to the last man," said one officer. "Good," said another. "Less to clean up." Gabaldon didn't speak. He remembered the voice of his foster mother, gentle. "Careful," she once told him. "If you speak to a man in his language, you speak to his heart." On day 3 of the campaign, his patrol moved inland near a ridge overrun with machine gun nests. They were ambushed. 6 Marines went down in under a minute. Gabaldon fell last, knocked back, bleeding from his arm, but alive. He crawled out under smoke cover, found a foxhole, waited hours. When he returned, only bodies remained. One of them had joked the night before, "You think you're gonna sweet-talk the Emperor's boys?" That Marine had bled out behind a tree. Gabaldon didn't say a word, but something hardened. Back at base, the officer debriefed him. "You're lucky," he said, "but don't go playing cowboy." Gabaldon nodded. He didn't sleep that night. He sat near the cave line, alone, listening. At one point he heard voices, Japanese, not yelling, talking. He didn't report it, he just listened, then wrote a few phrases in the dirt. Gabaldon heard what the others didn't, but more importantly, he chose not to repeat what the system trained into him, that the enemy only understands pain, that the uniform erases humanity. He was mocked not for failure but for noticing what didn't fit the doctrine. Gabaldon returned to the front without orders. He walked the perimeter alone, eyes scanning the ridgelines, ears tuned for voices behind stone. He began collecting intelligence in ways the Marines didn't track: phrasing, cadence, hesitation. He recognized Okinawan dialects, noted who shouted versus who whispered. On the 3rd night, he found a wounded Japanese soldier too weak to resist. Gabaldon didn't draw his rifle. He spoke. The man froze. Gabaldon told him he'd be treated, then asked him where his unit was. The man hesitated, then pointed toward a narrow valley. Gabaldon marked it in his head. He said nothing to command. They'd never believe him. That night he sharpened a belt knife, cleaned his rifle, then left his tent before dawn. He carried no translator, no permission, just a flashlight, a few phrases, and a bluff. He wasn't sure what he was doing, only that it wasn't the Marine way. Not quite, but it wasn't cowardice either. Something in him understood the cost of blind fighting. He had watched it take 6 of his friends in seconds. The same system that trained him to shoot now gave him no tools to save. He went anyway. He left camp before sunrise, carried no orders, told no one. He walked toward a ravine where he'd heard voices the night before. His rifle stayed slung. In his hand only a flashlight. At the edge of the rocks, he called out in Japanese, not a whisper, a command: "You are surrounded. If you surrender now, you will not be harmed. If you resist, gas will be deployed." There was no gas, no backup, just a teenage Marine bluffing in perfect Tokyo dialect. Then silence. Seconds passed. Footsteps. 2 men appeared, uniformed, unarmed. They bowed. Gabaldon walked them back to camp. The Marines froze. "Where the hell did you find them?" He said nothing, just lit a cigarette. Word spread. Most thought it was a fluke. Others laughed. "You found 2 cowards. That's it," he said. "No, they weren't cowards. They just listened." Next night he returned, this time to a larger cave system marked by a wooden cooking rack and discarded sandals. He used the same tactic, different words. The war is lost. Come out with honor. Bring your wounded. You will not be killed. He repeated it twice, then waited. 45 minutes later, a woman's voice replied. Then the first child appeared, then 3 soldiers, then more. By dawn, Gabaldon had led 50 prisoners, men, women, children, back to the lines, not one shot fired. This time, the lieutenant pulled him aside. What you're doing isn't in protocol. Gabaldon shrugged. Neither is dying in caves. The lieutenant stared at him, said nothing. Let him walk away. Gabaldon began repeating the process. Map, bluff, speak, wait, adjust. Some caves gave him nothing. Some returned rocks. Others gave him soldiers tired, wounded, confused, not always eager to live, but willing to listen. The threat of gas helped. So did the tone firm, not begging. They believed him because he sounded like authority, not like a boy from Los Angeles. Within 5 nights, his tally passed 100. Command didn't believe the numbers. You mean your unit? One officer asked. Gabaldon shook his head. No, just me. They pulled him off patrol, investigated, then sent him back out. They couldn't ignore results. He worked alone. He preferred it. No footsteps behind him. No noise. Just silence, then his voice, then whatever came next. He knew some wouldn't surrender. Others would lie, but enough didn't. That was all he needed. One man was saving more lives with words than a whole unit could with bullets. By the second week, Gabaldon wasn't a curiosity. He was a weapon. Command stopped asking where he was going. They just logged the results. In one day alone, he brought in 120 prisoners, many armed, none wounded. Some called him a miracle worker. Others still muttered traitor behind his back. He didn't care. The caves were getting deeper. The surrenders harder. Word had spread among the Japanese lines. The talking Marine was dangerous, not because he killed, because he didn't. The enemy changed tactics. Booby traps appeared near cave mouths. One evening, a tripwire triggered an explosive after Gabaldon had just finished negotiations. The blast killed 2 surrendering civilians behind him. He barely ducked the shrapnel. He didn't go out the next night. He sat in silence, then sharpened his knife, repacked his gear, and went again. In another cave, the reply came sharp: better to die than surrender. Gabaldon changed tone. Then die alone. But your children will live. A pause. Then 3 soldiers came out, followed by civilians. Sometimes it didn't work. One cave gave him nothing but gunfire. He rolled out behind a ridge, counted breaths, and walked away. Not every battle could be won with language, but enough could be. He kept going. He started bluffing harder. There are tanks outside. There weren't. Poison gas is being loaded. It wasn't, but they believed him, because he didn't flinch. He carried himself like a staff officer, gave exact time limits. You have 10 minutes, then I can't protect you. In truth, he had no authority, no plan, no gas, no backup, just presence. What changed wasn't just the numbers, it was the psychology. Civilians began emerging from caves before he even called out. Mothers holding infants, wounded fathers with bloodied tunics. Some bowed, others cried. A few recognized his dialect as Tokyo but flawed. Were you raised in Japan? They asked. No, he said. By Japanese in America. One night he heard sobbing, not fear, grief. A woman was trying to drown herself in a barrel. Her son stopped her. Gabaldon approached. She stared at him. In her face he saw someone else, his foster mother, her soft voice, her careful hands during the war years, the way she watched the news of Pearl Harbor and said, now we will all be hated. He didn't speak for 30 seconds. Then he said, you are safe. The war is not over, but you are safe. She surrendered. Back at camp, someone asked how he was doing it. He said, because no one trained me how not to. On day 14, his body gave out. He collapsed after escorting over 70 people in a single afternoon. He refused medical treatment. Not now, he said. They'll stop listening. He changed his tone again. Less command, more empathy. He told them what surrender would mean, how they'd be fed, how their names would be recorded. He promised things he wasn't sure about, but he meant them. The deeper he went, the more personal it became. The system gave him a rifle. His life had given him language. And now, against orders and logic, he used it to break the enemy's will, not with firepower, but with presence. But language demands responsibility, and words, unlike bullets, echo. They found the stronghold on the 19th day. Intelligence called it Cave Complex Number 12, a network of tunnels cut into volcanic rock, dug by engineers, stocked with food, ammunition, and over 500 people, soldiers, medics, and civilians. High command ordered it destroyed. Artillery crews positioned to level the site by dawn. Gabaldon stepped in. "Give me 1 hour," he said. The colonel refused. "They'll never surrender. Not now." Gabaldon repeated the request. 1 hour. Nothing more. A lieutenant vouched for him. A delay was granted. He went in alone. Flashlight taped to one hand, pistol in the other. He didn't expect to use it. The entrance was steep, wet. He slipped twice, then called out, not with threats, but with a story. "I am the American who speaks your language. You've heard of me. I don't want you to die. I want you to go home. You've fought hard. No shame in surviving." Nothing. He pressed deeper. His light caught movement. A boy no older than 10 crouched with a woman. He stepped forward, then paused. "I won't harm you," he said. The woman stared, then stood. She said, "You are not like them." He nodded. She moved back into the dark. 5 minutes passed. Then a voice echoed. A man, older, raspy. "I was a teacher before the war. You speak like my son." Gabaldon replied. "Let's end this like teachers." By dusk, the cave emptied. Not in panic, in procession. 5 at a time, then 10, then whole families, soldiers, medics. One officer with his arm in a sling. He gave Gabaldon his sword, then bowed. The Marines waited in stunned silence as hundreds walked out. The artillery plan was cancelled. Gabaldon collapsed from heat and dehydration, carried back unconscious. When he woke, a sergeant sat by his cot. "You just captured more people than some divisions kill." Gabaldon said, "I told you, they'll listen." The final holdout came a week later. Northern Ridge, narrow canyon. Reports estimated at least 300 Japanese soldiers still alive, possibly more, including a few die-hard officers who had vowed to die in place. Intelligence confirmed they had rejected all previous surrender calls. Even leaflets were ignored. Some Marines expected a last banzai charge. Others wanted to shell the ridge flat. Gabaldon listened, then asked, "Do we have a loudspeaker?" No one responded. He made one, taped a makeshift cone to the end of a mess tin, carried it like a relic. At first light, he climbed a side path and stood exposed on the ridge. "This is Private Guy Gabaldon," he shouted. "You have heard my voice. You know what I have done. I offer you one chance. In 10 minutes, I will call in a gas strike. You will not survive, but if you surrender, you will be treated. Your families will be safe." The canyon was quiet. He waited, then added, "The Americans are not your enemy, but your shame will be your tomb." Still silence. Gabaldon sat, drank water, waited 15 minutes. Then he stood again and said, "If no one walks out, I will walk in." He began descending into the canyon. Command had no idea where he was. His radio battery was dead. He had told no one but one sergeant, "Cover me if they shoot." He entered the canyon's mouth. No light, just rock and heat. He called again, "This is your last chance." Then movement. A white cloth appeared. Then another. Then a line of men, wounded, unarmed, followed by others. By midday, over 300 Japanese soldiers had surrendered. Among them, 3 officers. One had a bullet lodged in his thigh. He saluted Gabaldon, said, "You understand us. That is why we followed." Gabaldon didn't reply. He simply turned and led them back to the line. No one spoke for several minutes. A corporal finally muttered, "He's not a Marine. He's a damn magician." Gabaldon reported his count. Others verified it. He sat on a rock, drank the rest of his canteen, then asked, "Do we still have that mess tin? I want it back." The war wasn't over, but something had shifted. After Saipan was secured, Gabaldon was pulled from frontline duty. Official reports listed over 1,300 prisoners captured by or through him. Command officers reviewed the numbers. Some doubted, others credited unit coordination. Gabaldon submitted no formal requests. He filled out no glory paperwork. He didn't speak at the medals ceremony. He just went home. In the months that followed, others received bronze stars, silver stars, even medals of honor for actions less costly, less complex. Gabaldon was awarded a silver star, quietly. Years later, it was upgraded to a Navy Cross, but not the Medal of Honor. No citation mentioned his language. No commendation listed his 1,300 prisoners as one man's work. In private, a general told him, "We can't give that kind of recognition to someone who disobeyed protocol." Gabaldon didn't argue. He had heard that tone before. In 2002, a bipartisan effort pushed for his Medal of Honor. Congress reviewed records. A committee agreed it was overdue, but the Department of Defense declined insufficient corroboration. The memo said, Gabaldon's reply, I didn't do it for medals, I did it because it worked. He never asked again. Gabaldon returned to California and opened a business, raised a family, spoke rarely about the war. When asked, he'd say, I did my part. For decades, his story remained local legend. Among veterans, some remembered the kid who spoke Japanese. Others didn't believe it. No way one guy did all that, one said in a 1970 reunion. His numbers were questioned, his methods dismissed. Even his name left off some records. It didn't fit the mold. But in Little Tokyo, he was remembered, quietly, as a son who never turned his back on the people who raised him. In Japanese-American circles, his actions held weight, not because he captured enemies, but because he saw civilians where others saw threats. When the PBS documentary aired in 2003, a new generation saw his face, young, sharp-eyed, holding no rifle, just words. The Pentagon didn't comment. The Marine Corps didn't change his citation. But thousands commented online. Veterans, historians, families. Why didn't we learn this in school? One asked. Another, he saved them, all of them, and us too. Reflection number 3. History often forgets what doesn't fit the narrative of sanctioned power. Gabaldon wasn't decorated the way shooters were. He wasn't believed the way officers were. He saved lives through language, and for that he was sidelined. We remember warriors with guns, but what about the ones who used memory, culture, and courage to do something even harder? To stop the killing without becoming the killer? Gabaldon never called himself a hero, but the men who walked out of those caves alive knew better. Today, Marine Corps training includes language modules, cultural immersion, rules of engagement shaped by stories like Gabaldon's. But his name isn't on the curriculum. His face isn't in the textbooks. There's no monument on Saipan in his honor. Only the silence he left behind 1,200 men and women who lived because he spoke. First, he passed away in 2006. No parade, no headlines. But at his funeral, one former Japanese officer now in his 80s sent a message. Tell his family I am here because he chose words instead of bullets. If this story meant something to you, share it. Comment where you're watching from, and tell us, who in your family saved lives instead of taking them? Because not all heroes carry guns. Some carry memory. Guy Gabaldon didn't disobey to be brave, he disobeyed because the system never imagined mercy could win. He proved them wrong.